Hello, welcome, and thank you for being part of WorkSafe's Priorities to Reduce Workplace Harm in Construction webinar. My name is Cameron Ling, and I'll be your host for this session. Today, I'm joined by James Webster, Senior Construction Advisor for WorkSafe Victoria. Good morning to you, James.
Good morning, Lee. How are you, mate?
Really well, thank you. It's great that you can join us to have this really important conversation. Construction remains one of the highest risk industries to work in. Year after year, a consistent set of hazards continue to cause harm to Victorian construction workers. WorkSafe Victoria has made it a priority to address these harms through the Priority Harms Project. Today, we're going to explore those key topics with James, along with others, how the Priority Harms Project addresses the most prevalent causes of fatalities and serious injuries in construction, the four subsectors of construction that WorkSafe is currently focusing on. By highlighting core hazards identified in the project, we'll examine why WorkSafe is encouraging duty holders to reflect on their workplace and ensure they are continuing to control these priority harms. Then we're going to open it up to you, the audience, for a question and answer. WorkSafe Victoria is focusing on the most prevalent causes of fatalities and serious injuries across the construction sector and where they are most likely to occur to drive a reduction in the number of lives lost and injuries at work. The Priority Harms Project, which I mentioned before, aligns with WorkSafe Victoria's strategy 2023 to drive down fatality, injury and illness rates. James, my first question to you is, what was the genesis of the Priority Harms Project? How did WorkSafe decide to prioritise these priorities?
Yeah, great question, Cam. So we started the Priority Harms Project back in 2022, and that was to bring focus onto the four main subsectors that make up construction, and that is commercial, housing, demolition, and the civil subsector. We recognise that each subsector of construction has its own unique hazards and consequently risk controls. And this is clear in our data and through feedback from our inspectors as well as our external stakeholders. So we've put together the scope and content of the Priority Harms Project by working with our inspectors and our external stakeholders, i.e. employers, unions and other industry bodies.
Thanks for that, James. Why and how has WorkSafe selected these four subsectors?
Yeah, it's a good question. So these four subsectors, they represent the most prominent subsectors that make up construction. So they also represent a large portion of injuries and fatalities as well in construction. So these are the big four.
Tell me, could you, and perhaps tell our audience more importantly, just how does the Priority Harms Project help employers and employees?
So inspectors are heading out to workplaces every single day and they are focusing on these priority harms in each subsector. So the Priority Harms Project will help employers, it will help employees, it will help inspectors, it will help everyone in the industry recognise what the most prevalent causes of harm are in their subsectors. So it's bringing about consistency and it's bringing about that awareness. This project will also help to inform what risk control measures are reasonably practicable for your industry and for your trade. So again, this is really about driving consistency. Sorry, Cam. This is about driving that consistency and the application of reasonably practicable risk controls for each subsector.
Right, sorry to interrupt you there. Can you tell us what are the tailored initiatives WorkSafe has developed for these groups?
So besides from speaking to employers every single day about these harms and bringing greater awareness to it, we're also releasing guidance material. This includes videos. You guys can check them out on YouTube. We have strategy working groups where we get to hear from industry bodies. We also have the focus blitzes to address particular harm or particular harms in subsectors. So for example, we've got one coming up in Echuca where we're focusing on asbestos and falls. You can check that out on our socials.
Yeah, great. Thank you. You mentioned falls there, and I note that falls from heights and also use of electricity are physical hazards that affect all of the four subsectors you've targeted. I suppose this is a good time just to jump in to get the answers from our poll result. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to lock in their answer. The question was asked, how many claims have WorkSafe received for falls from heights in construction in the last 5 years? We've got a really great response, and neck at the moment between around 2,250 and around 1,500. Just ahead is the bigger number of 2,250. James, I'm going to get you to give me the answer in a second, but also if you could continue on with why are these priority harms common and why they are still so prevalent?
Yeah, so the correct answer is, drum roll, 2,250. It is a shocking figure to think that 2,250's employees' lives have been turned upside down from falling from height. It's a really shocking number. And the reason why these harms are still so prevalent for falls, as an example, and for electricity, these are harder hazards to eliminate from the construction process. When we build buildings, we're building them up several stories in the air, and that comes, there comes the falls hazard. And with electricity, we need electricity to build these buildings and structures. So that's why it's a bit harder to eliminate. So we've got to reduce these so far as reasonably practicable.
It is a shockingly high number, isn't it, that 2,250? I can imagine that other hazards in these groups are varied and include things like moving plant, falling objects, and also structural collapse. How important is it for employers across the subsectors you've identified to consider other priority harms from another subsector?
Well, it's very important, Cam. Although we've worked with the industry in identifying these 4 or 5 harms, which may be in your particular subsector, your duty as an employer is to identify and control all risks which may be present in your workplace, so far as reasonably practicable. It's also important to recognise that construction sites, they change every single day, and so too may the hazards. A falls from height issue may not be there on your site yesterday, but it might be on your site today. So it's important to stop and reevaluate.
Yeah, so just adding on from that one, James, what broad advice would you give construction operators when addressing and mitigating these priority harms?
Well, first, I'd recommend to everyone to speak with the employees. Consultation is mandatory under the law, and just chat with them and help to work with them to identify what hazards are present at your workplace and what risk controls you should be implementing. Secondly, seek to implement the highest order of risk controls, and that's to say, what is the best risk control that you can put into your workplace today? Thirdly, it's about reviewing and, if necessary, revising your risk controls. So this may occur if there's a sign that the risk control isn't working as well as it should be.
James, small operators in the construction sector, they might say they just don't have the resources or the time to do what you want them to do. What would your advice be to them? How can WorkSafe help here?
Yeah, it's a great question, Cam. So running a small business can be tough work, but seeking advice and input from your employees can really help bring about a great solution sooner. Other than that, you can also have a look at the WorkSafe advisory service. You can seek out guidance on particular OHS matters, and you can also seek out the guidance from our inspectorate. We're a very knowledgeable bunch of people. Further to that, WorkSafe also funds the OHS Essentials program. This is a fantastic program. So this allows employers to receive free, independent health and safety consultation to provide advice on improving health and safety in your workplace. There's also some other programs that employers can look at. That is the WorkWell program for mental health. And it's also the Manual Handling Basics program. This is a free, these are both free programs that you can adopt and bring about a safer workplace.
Excellent, James. Thank you for updating us on that. What is WorkSafe doing to roll out the Priority Harms Project, and how are you working across the sector to help manage their exposure?
So WorkSafe inspectors will be visiting workplaces every single day to take strong compliance and enforcement, to take a strong enforcement and compliance approach, targeting these priority harms. And in addition to that compliance and enforcement activity, we'll influence change through partnerships with industry, including education and awareness raising, developing media campaigns and media alerts, and by encouraging research into new solutions. So it's really a well-rounded project.
How has the project gone?
Well, since the launch of the project, WorkSafe have visited over 4,000 workplaces and issued over 1,700 improvement notices and conducted over 80 upstream interventions. So an upstream intervention is something that we describe as when an inspector has found an issue at a workplace, then undertakes further inquiries with the company or with a manufacturer or supplier to ensure that the systems of work to control that risk have been applied across all sites or where that product or substance has been supplied. So this is really about expanding our sphere of influence and bringing about safer workplaces.
Certainly very comprehensive, James. Thanks for that. Are you seeing any themes, or is there any new set of harms emerging?
Yes, I can give you two examples, Cam. So despite being a well-known hazard in the workplace, falls continue to go uncontrolled, falls through stair voids, falls off of the side of a house, for example. The second example is construction. The construction industry is still responding to respirable crystalline silica. You may have seen the webinar yesterday, but there is still more work to do in this space. Plus, people might believe that safe work method statements are often very large. So there's some other issues that we're seeing with safe work method statements, thinking that they need to be large and overcomplicated. So they don't need to be large and overcomplicated. They're there to benefit the worker. So keep them simple and keep them effective. If you want to find out a bit more information about SWIMS, please subscribe or please attend the SWIMS webinar when you get a chance. My colleague Rick Fisher will be doing it this Friday at 12 o'clock, so catch him online.
That's really good advice. Hopefully people can tune into that one as well. Do you have any case studies that illustrate your project in action? Are there any real life stories that you're able to share with us today?
Yeah, I do. I've got a really good upstream example. So during a priority harms inspection at a workplace, an inspector identified some non-compliances with how a duty holder was managing their crystalline silica hazards. So the issues were dealt with immediately on site. However, the inspector then made that upstream intervention with the company at their head office. These inquiries led to the company identifying a number of further improvements, which were then implemented across the whole of the company, improving the health and safety of all of their sites, not just that one site that that inspector visited. These improvements included the company stop using a silica flour, which contains high levels of respirable crystalline silica. They have now eliminated it by replacing it with a product that does not contain crystalline silica. So it's a really, really high level effective control that they've implemented. Some other controls that they've looked at implementing is sand being used to mix resin. They've adopted a washed sand, which has lower levels of crystalline silica. All their vacuums that they've bought now are all M and H class vacuums, and the crystalline silica has a control statements. They've adopted those, and they've talked about water suppression in there as well. So it's a really great outcome from this case study.
Well, it's good to hear that there's a great result from that and thinking about it and doing the right thing. Fantastic. Really appreciate you giving that example. I'm hearing that although these harms are prevalent throughout the 4 construction subsectors, WorkSafe has identified in this project, risk control measures are typically easy to implement and very effective. By focusing on these core hazards, WorkSafe is clearly aiming to reduce harm to Victorian construction workers. We do encourage, of course, duty holders to reflect on their workplace and ensure they are controlling these priority harms. James, if it's okay with you, I'd love to get to some questions because a number are coming through with what you're talking about here today, and obviously a really important topic. I'll jump straight in. A whole heap of people are after the answer to this one. Why do we think fatality rates are not decreasing with all the extra awareness, education, funding, safety professionals, codes and regs in our workplaces?
I would imagine, I don't have the exact answer in front of me, but I imagine we've seen a massive increase in the workforce. The construction workforce in the industry has also increased. So I would imagine with the increase in the industry, the size of the industry, it's very unfortunate there is that corresponding increase in injuries and fatalities. We're working every day to reduce those rates of injuries and fatalities, and it's something that we'll continue to do well into the future.
I might need your help with one of the acronyms here, James, if you don't mind.
Sure.
A lot of WAH incidents.
Working at heights.
Working at heights, thank you very much. Appreciate that. A lot of working at heights incidents stem back to safety in design or works planning. How will WorkSafe proactively infiltrate the planning stages of work?
It's a great question. So designers of building and structures do have a section in the Act. So they would need to consider that. So that's one aspect. And of course, these upstream interventions and these conversations that we're having every day will help bring greater awareness to the compliance with the Act. And having that safety in design, it is a fantastic, fantastic concept that people should be adopting. That's how we're going to be achieving that.
So many people who are joining us in the audience today are apprentices themselves, or certainly a majority have been an apprentice at some point throughout their career. This one relates to it. Do you place any particular emphasis on risks to young workers, e.g. apprentices?
Yeah, so we consider apprentices, particularly the younger ones, to be vulnerable workers, being between the age of 15 and 24. That's when they're learning the workplace. They're really trying to impress the boss and go above and beyond, but this is when they're at the most. This is when they're in the most amount of danger during this period. So yes, we do focus on them. We have projects developed, and we have a construction industry education officer who goes out to TAFEs every single day to talk to these people to make them aware of their rights and responsibilities in the workplace. So it's a fantastic question.
Great, thank you to everyone who's sending the questions through. I'll keep on going with them. We've got lots of people sending in questions. I'm going to read this next one just the way it's written, and I hope it makes sense. A-frame 3-foot ladders accepted, or are all A-frame ladders prohibited for use on construction site?
That's a great question. So when we have a look at the falls hierarchy of control, ladders are right down the bottom. So what I would encourage people to do is to have a look higher up the hierarchy of control to see whether you guys can have maybe a mobile scaffold. That might be something that you guys might be able to achieve and put into your workplace, or maybe a smaller scissor lift or another type of EWP. Then if you've worked down through that hierarchy and you've landed on a ladder, consider what ladder is going to be best for the task. Is an A-frame where you may not be able to achieve 3 points of contact, you might be overreaching, you might be handling materials and tools. Is that A-frame going to be suitable, or would you need to have a look at a platform ladder where you have a nice stable platform, you have a bar which is able to go behind your back to secure into that spot? That might be something that you want to be having a look at. So it's really about working from the hierarchy down, and then considering if you have landed on a ladder, considering what type of ladder is going to be fit for purpose. WorkSafe has guidance on ladder selection, and we also have compliance codes around general construction and housing construction to how to manage the risk of falling more than 2 meters. So it's a very good question.
Great, thanks, James. I'll continue on. Where can I get more information regarding WorkSafe's new initiatives on this project regarding working at heights?
Yeah, great. So we have the Priority Harms landing page. So if you type into the WorkSafe search bar, Priority Harms, you'll be able to see some information and guidance on there. And of course, we have our compliance codes and industry standards all available, all online. So that is a really good place to start. And if you need more information, feel free to call up the WorkSafe Advisory Service, and they're able to point you in the right direction.
Continuing on, James, are any of the initiatives targeted at reducing harm against women in construction?
Yeah, so we recognise that there is psychosocial harm and sexual harassment that comes with that. We have our own dedicated psychosocial specialist team, and we're also going out and having a look at that. Though it's not captured explicitly in this particular project, it is the feature of many projects across WorkSafe Victoria, and we continue to work towards a safer workplace for all workers, including women.
Great, thank you, James. Next one, will the Priority Harms Project continue, and how do you think it will evolve? Sorry.
That's a great question. So this is all about bringing greater awareness to these prevalent causes of harm. These harms have been with us since Jesus was a boy, really. So I imagine that this Priority Harms Project will continue to drive that consistency and continue to drive awareness for the next few years to come. So how will it evolve? Well, we'll continue to tackle these upstream interventions, and we'll continue to dive in deeper into people's workplaces and help them out with achieving higher orders of controls, as well as bringing about greater levels of consultation with their workplace.
Great, thanks, James. Why is WorkSafe stepping away from targeted 2 to 3 week blitzes?
That's a great question, Cam. So the reason why we're having a look at it is if you have a look at the data, we have a 20-year trend, as was noted at the start of the Q&A session. A 2 to 3 week blitz, in our opinion, may not be sufficient to address what is a 20-year trend. So we need to bring about consistency and bring about greater awareness beyond that of a 2 to 3 week blitz. That is not to say that we won't blitz certain harms or certain hazards within the Priority Harms Project, but this Priority Harms Project is all about bringing greater awareness on a much greater scale.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that, James. This next one, a lot of people asking it. With the big boom in government-funded construction in Victoria, there are limited number of safety professionals and leaders. How does WorkSafe handle these situations?
It's a great question. So we anticipated, I think everyone in the industry anticipated that there was going to be a vacuum. Everyone was going to be pulled up to the larger projects. So what we've done is we've established the Major Construction Projects team. This team is there to look after these government-funded projects. We also have an active line of communication between the construction division and the major construction projects. We also continue to go out and speak to the duty holders and find out what's affecting them. And if we feel that they need extra help, we have a section in the Act to ask them to consult with consultants. We also have the OHS Essentials program, which provides consultants to your workplace for 3 sessions, and that is free. So we're helping to alleviate that skill shortage, if you will.
Stephen wants to know this one, James. What are WorkSafe doing to remove the stigma that is present in workplaces regarding the negative impact of regulators' visits to site?
Well, I suppose this webinars like this, we put on a big smile, and we are human after all, and we try to come out and we try to do our best, and we actually try to work with you guys. So that's the way we're doing it. We're not a big scary regulator. We're here to help, and we're here to make sure that every worker goes home safely. So that's what we're doing, mate. We're just getting out, getting about and saying hello and trying to help you guys in fulfilling your duties and providing a safer workplace.
This question links back to the one before about ladders, James. Do you need specific training to erect small mobile scaffold to eliminate the use of a ladder?
Yeah, so if you have a look for that mobile scaffold, there'll be an instruction manual that comes from the manufacturer or supplier. You would need to provide some level of training to the employees who are tasked with erecting it and using it and dismantling that. So that is what I'll look at. If you are erecting the scaffold where there is a risk of a person falling more than 4 meters or a risk of an object falling more than 4 meters, then you would need to get a higher risk work license or a scaffolding ticket to get that done. But if it's just under 4 meters and it's in a room where there is no risk, that's when the information, instruction and training would need to come into place.
Makes a lot of sense. Thanks, James. This one here, has WorkSafe looked for common themes in causes that cut across the priority sources of harm? Are there campaigns to help businesses improve in these areas?
So could you please repeat that question, Cam?
Absolutely. Has WorkSafe looked for common themes in causes that cut across the priority sources of harm? Are there campaigns to help businesses improve in these areas?
Yeah, so we have had a look at trends that cut across those harms. So one good example is secondary guarding with EWPs. We've noticed that there are some trends with people maybe not providing safety observers. So we're getting out and about and talking about safety observers with EWPs. We've released the industry standard. We're also releasing safety alerts. So these are the mechanisms, or these are the tools that are available to us. So when we see these trends, we're releasing safety alerts, we're releasing guidance, and we're getting out and about and speaking to these strategy working groups, to different committees, to really spread that message about what we're seeing at the coalface.
This next one, James, just asking for a little bit of clarification on, I think, one of the points you made earlier. Why is lost time injury frequency rate not used to measure fall from height incidents since the workforce is increasing? This tells whether your measures are working.
It's a good question, and the answer is I'm not too sure is the correct answer. I need to go back and have a look at how this project has been designed and evaluated. That's a very good question, so thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Speaking of deciding on things, how did WorkSafe decide on these issues?
So it's a great question. So we've had a look at the data, and these are the big 4 or 5 that came through to us in our data. We also set up strategy working groups with external stakeholders, and we've also spoke to our inspectors to hear what they're seeing out on the ground. So that's how we settled on these 4 to 5 harms in each particular subsector.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, James. Next one. Will WorkSafe update its methods to align with new tertiary research in regards to safety to or safety differently, where paperwork is seen as bureaucratic?
Righto, I understand. I think I understand this question. So what they're talking about, if you have a look at it, I imagine they're referring to a SWIMS, for example. A SWIMS does not have to be a paper-based system. It has to be a document, and document can be any particular type of thing. So we're not beholden to a piece of paper, for example, but what it's all about is providing those systems of work. It doesn't have to be paper-based. It's how it fits into your workplace. But I understand in the industry, we typically go to the paper, a big, long procedure. So I understand that question, yeah.
Great, thanks for that, James. I might stop the questions there, if that's okay. Really appreciate, we've given you a bit of a grilling today, James, but we really appreciate you've come in and had a chat to us. It's so important to hear those key messages that are being focused on. So big thank you to WorkSafe's James Webster. Thank you, James.
Thanks, Cam.
It's always great to see you, and I know that you've been right out throughout Health and Safety Month, speaking to as many people as you possibly can. So we really appreciate your time. We do hope that everyone has found this an interesting and informative session. If you want to continue learning right throughout the rest of this week as part of Health and Safety Month, continuing on tomorrow and for the remainder of this week, we will continue to bring you webinars across a range of important topics. If you haven't already registered, go to WorkSafe's website to find the schedule and also the links there that you'll need. This webinar that James has presented here today will be available online via WorkSafe's website from next month. We're going to make a note on the screen shortly too, a list of contacts that have been mentioned and that you might find helpful. If you have any further requests for information, please do get in touch with us. It's really important. If there is something you need to discuss urgently, we do have the WorkSafe advisory line and the emergency line, so please utilise those services. Thank you so much for being part of today's webinar. It's really important that everybody who's joined in can hear these key messages and hopefully take them back to their own workplaces, and we can continue to keep as many people safe as we possibly can. Enjoy the rest of your day. We will be back throughout this entire week with more webinars on behalf of WorkSafe's Health and Safety Month.